Are you looking for details of the most beautiful weekend hikes in southeast Queensland and further afield? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Everyday Hiker podcast. My name is Beck and I'm your host. Join me and my guest hikers as we share amazing locations, practical tips and guides for new hikers as well as those with a bit more experience looking for inspiration. And please, if you like what you hear, follow me, share with your friends, rate my podcast and send me your feedback. Okay, hello and welcome today. I have a special guest, Mitch, with me, who is from Wildfire Sports. Welcome, Mitch.
Thanks for having me. First time podcaster, so hopefully if I do it right, it might not be my last.
Let's hope so. I'm sure you've got a wealth of knowledge to share with us. So, in fact, we'll never cover everything today. I'm sure of it, but we're going to give it our best go. I think one of the most common topics that come up on hiking Facebook pages and forums is what shoes should I buy? And I think there's also a bit of a divide at the moment about trail running shoes, trail hiking shoes, and the traditional hiking shoes. So that's something we're going to delve into today. But firstly, Mitch is an experienced all-round outdoor enthusiast by the sounds of things. And not only does he enjoy trail running, triathlons, cycling, he's done it all. He's worked for Wildfire for about 7 years. If you haven't been into Wildfire and checked it out, fantastic, I guess, outdoor specialists, but predominantly shoes, but there's also a lot of backpacks and other gear in there. And you get very personal service. I used to work at Milton and I would pop in during the week, which I think is the best time to go because all the senior experts are there to help you one-on-one. So Mitch, let's kick off with perhaps the most popular, for a reason or not, we'll find out. Shoes at the moment seem to be the Hokas. And how do they stack up when you're talking hiking?
Yeah, it's probably the most popular question we get, and we wanted to stock the brand Hoka for a long time before we actually stocked it. I think it's just a bit of a trend at the moment. It's kind of cool. But for us, I would say it's kind of that transition away from the traditional hiking shoes per se to lots of other brands. And it's not just Hoka or Hoka, depending on... Australians always butcher every way to pronounce stuff, so like Saucony and Saucony. But it's that transition away from heavier duty, stiff hiking shoes to this lighter weight, flexible, more running trail shoe style. So that's what we see predominantly.
Now, one thing that puts me off perhaps investing in one of these more lightweight shoes is durability, because I think if you're doing a lot of hiking, and I know a lot of people that I talk to, multi-day hikes are really popular at the moment, and I would worry about blowing the sole out or putting my toe through that more lighter weight upper. Is that still a concern? Is that improved?
I would say with your lighter weight, so the trail, what we sell predominantly is trail running shoes for trail hiking. So our most popular probably trail hiking shoe in general would be like an Ultra Lone Peak, which is technically a pure running shoe. But it would outsell all the hiking shoes, all the Scarpas, all your Keens, all your Merrills and Salomon hiking shoes easily. And that is because you are in a lighter shoe, the foam's nice and soft, but the durability is good in these shoes. For most of us, we think that we're going to tear through these shoes, but most of us walk on trail. And that's the big difference. As much as we all think our hikes are really, really crazy, most of us never leave the trail. For your hunters, your photographers, where you go off track into the bush for days on end, that's my only slight difference where I would ever say maybe your full leather hiking boots are more popular. But for everyone else, no matter how crazy we really think our hikes are, it is on trail, and a trail shoe, a trail running shoe, will always be comfier. And they last, to be honest, just as long as some of the Scarpas.
Fantastic. Okay, so something else I read that really has maybe converted me to thinking this way is that the traditional hiking shoes, they're heavy. So it's not just the weight, and everybody's about ultralight at the moment when it comes to hiking, but it's not only that they're heavy to travel with, but when you're actually walking along, and this, the article I was reading is you're actually escalating the weight there because you're lifting your foot up with, every step. So is that a consideration, like Camino, these long hikes, that's surely going to make a big difference?
Yeah, so I think if you look at, say, for instance, we take a lower Ranger, which is a great boot, but it probably weighs north of 800 grams per shoe easily. If you look at, say, we go back to Hokas, I keep getting that wrong, so I'm not really sure which one. My brother's sponsored by Hoka, so I probably should get it right. But if you go to Challenger 8s, which I'm actually wearing at the moment, they are around probably 250 to 270 grams. So if you look at that, that's 600 grams per shoe. And if you take 30,000 steps a day when you're out hiking or more, it is a huge amount of weight that you're going through. So we see say if you go to your big long ones, Camino, which we see lots of people, PCT in America, and Arizona Trail, which are like month-long hikes, the most popular shoe again will always be a trail running shoe. No one not no one, but virtually no one will be wearing boots, and they're your longest hikes. So Ultra Lone Peak again it's kind of got a cult following over in America for those kind of hikes, those 3 hikes.
Okay, so for the traditionalist who wears boots, and I used to wear boots, now I wear low cut, find them a lot more comfortable. But I guess one of my reasons for that was that I don't have ankle issues, but also I just find the boots a bit hot. So somebody who's worried about their ankles always gets told that boots are what's needed for ankle support. So what's your thoughts on that?
I'd say most people coming in that want boots have always been told and that you need boots for ankle stability, like you're going to break your ankle if you go out there. But again, these days is like we don't do anything that's that crazy. And I don't mean to like take down anyone's hikes, but a lot of it is still on trail. And if I said to most people, if you've got to walk for 10 hours around a footy oval or something similar to that, most people wouldn't go out there and buy boots. But when you think hiking, there's this like kind of everyone leans towards boots and heavyweight boots. But a lot of people have never walked in them. And you're probably going to find that if you've never walked in them before, you're going to get more issues. You probably feel nearly more unstable because you're used to wearing Asics Kayanos on the road or something like that. And now all of a sudden you've gone to 1 kilo hiking boots that are infinitely more weight. And you get this pressure around your ankle as well. You don't walk normally. Yes, you can get a little bit more ankle stability. So I would always say for people, if someone is really, really susceptible to rolling an ankle, and I mean like really susceptible, I would probably lean towards like a mid boot or a higher cut boot. But you can also get the same benefits if you actually go and strap your leg or put tape around your leg. If you're truly to break your ankle, it won't matter what shoe you're in. Like you could be in a ski boot nearly and you'll probably still break your ankle. So if you truly roll your ankle and it's going to break, it's not going to matter if you're in like a lower Ranger or a set of Hokas.
Okay, yeah, that's fair comment and very true.
Yeah.
What about waterproof? That's another thing that I think I probably have sought out hiking shoes for in the past because, you know, you've got a thick material, so that's going to help you with, you know, sticks and other things that might, including the soles, but also that waterproof nature that seemed to run off a bit better. How would you rate a more modern trail running shoe for those sort of qualities?
Yeah, so to answer the question quickly on that one, if you get a Gore-Tex trail shoe, it will have exactly the same waterproofing properties as a Gore-Tex hiking boot. Gore-Tex is just the material and like the brand they use, same as like Vibram rubber. So you'll see a lot of shoes, a lot of hiking shoes particularly use Vibram rubber. They don't make that themselves, they buy it from Vibram. It's the same as Gore-Tex. So you generally pay a bit extra for that. Companies like Keen use Keen Dry, which is virtually exactly the same as Gore-Tex, but they just save a bit of money there. There's other ones out there called Event. There's no difference in a sense if you get a waterproof trail shoe to a waterproof hiking shoe, but the big difference is, again, you're going to get is weight. I would always say is look at, like, when we get people into the store, the first thing I say is, what are you doing? Or what do you want to do? And most of them say, I'm going to hike in, say, Queensland particularly, it's around Mount Cootha, it's a little bit on like the border ranges, scenic rim, they're on trail. They're not doing overnight, a lot of them, it's just day hikes. Like, what would I always say you need there is you just go into a trail running shoe. Again, it's lighter, it's still waterproof. You can still get waterproof options. It's probably the biggest thing. So you can split it down the middle. You can get non-waterproof and waterproof. But if you're getting a low-cut trail running shoe, I personally in Queensland would never get a low-cut waterproof shoe. It just doesn't really make sense unless you're someone that actually, probably the most common time we sell like a low-cut waterproof shoe is people who walk dogs. So if you're walking dogs through wet grass in the morning when it's cold, that's probably the only time. Majority of people that are hiking in Queensland, again, you're on trail. A waterproof low-cut shoe just doesn't really make sense. So again, I would go towards that more lighter trail style shoe.
And so when someone comes in, can you not help yourself but sort of looking at their feet, the shape of their feet?
Yeah.
Are they wide? Are they skinny? Are they got high arches? Like, how important are factors like that?
I find it's a bit of a session after you work at probably a shoe store, and I'm sure everyone working at shoe stores would be the same. And my girlfriend says it to me, like, I walk past and I just like look at people's feet subconsciously as I'm walking through like the city or anywhere. I don't like feet personally, but it's like you kind of just get used to looking at what shoes people think. And you say, would I wear that shoe if I was them, or would I wear this shoe? And I think it's the way you're just used to it. But yeah, you get a good judge of looking at people. And I always say, like, what shoes do you normally wear? And if they come in with a background and saying like, I've done running and stuff like that, I'm about to do my first hike, I find it, I try to lean them. And again, I don't ever tell someone what to do. You can choose to do whatever you want to do. We sell a big thing at our store is like barefoot shoes. So we sell, if you worked at Wildfire, you'd assume half the population wears barefoot shoes because we sell so much of Vivo barefoot and Zero and stuff like that. And Ultra to a degree is based off a barefoot shoe. But yeah, if you work there, you'd assume everyone does that. But it gives you a good understanding of the fact that everyone's different. We get guys that do the same hikes in a pair of Vibram barefoot shoes that will go and do it in a pair of lower ranges or Scarpa SL Actives, which are your premium full leather, super heavy duty shoes, and they will both have success. I think, again, if we're going back to that question of which shoe is better, if you go for like that trail running shoe, you kind of sit in the middle there. You kind of get the best of both worlds. You can get waterproofing if you want, you can get lightweight if you want. You just have a few more flexible options, and for most people that wear normal shoes, I think the biggest risk you get when you go to boots is a lot of people find the rubbing around the ankle, so where the boot comes up over the ankle, is one of the biggest factors that gives them grief. So I would always say if you haven't worn a boot, it's a big risk taking, and a lot of the times in hiking, the less risk, the less things you can add on, the better experience you're going to have. And it's the same with the pack. If you're someone who first hike and they always think, oh, I need an 80 litre or 100 litre pack because I've got to take everything, it's like the more stuff you take, the heavier it's going to be, the more things can go wrong. So if you keep it simple, I mean, it's the old thing, if you keep it simple, everything's always easier.
That's great. How much does price come into this? Because if you are a first-time hiker, and you mentioned before that people are coming in saying, I'm doing my first hike, do you need to go straight to the most expensive, or, you know, like what and you know, we can't really, well, we can talk brands, but, you know, what's a decent amount of money to spend if you're an amateur, an everyday hiker? You know, what do you need to spend, do you think?
I would say it always depends on your budget. You can get our entry-level shoes, say our Asics Gel Ventures, are probably around like $110. And to be honest, it will probably do everyone, really. But a lot of people don't want to wear the cheaper shoes because as humans, we don't, I don't know, for some reason we don't like wearing the cheaper stuff. But for most people, you could start right at the bottom at 110 and it will cover virtually every hike. But I would say the normal brands, probably for trail shoes, have an average price of around, I mean, everything's gone up, probably around $220 to $260. Hokers are probably at the top end. They're pretty trendy at the moment. They know they can charge a bit of extra. But they're good shoes. You probably pay about $260 to $300. And then most of your hiking shoes, your premium ones will be $350 plus. And then you can kind of get Keens and Merrills, which are, I think, one of the great mid-range hiking shoes. And for most people, if I was going to put people in boots, I think they're a great place to start. And they're around, like, say, $250. Price does definitely not always mean you get stuff better. If you're not going to utilise a set of $400 boots, it's just a waste of money. And for most people, I would say, if you come in thinking you need scarfers and stuff like that, for most normal hikes, like around Coota or even multi-day hikes, 5-day long hikes, a lot of people will try and cram their foot into a more expensive shoe because they think they need it. I would always avoid that, and I would say if you could get a shoe that costs $1 and it's comfortable versus a shoe that costs $600 and it's not comfortable, I would take 5 sets of the $1 shoe any day of the week.
And I think when you're on those longer hikes, this is so important to get right. So how long do you reckon it takes to break in a pair of shoes? So if you were, you know, everybody's talking about the Camino at the moment. If you were going on the Camino next April, do you need to start breaking them in now? Like, how far in advance would you... To know that they're right for you?
Yeah. Again, I think this kind of harps back to that thing is we've kind of grown up, and so I'm 30, so I'm probably in the middle. I kind of see what my parents did, and I kind of see what the younger generation, I guess, people call me, if they're 60, they probably call me young, but I see the people at like 18 and 20 as young. If you wear a hiking shoe, you have to break them in. Well, the majority of them. I'd say Keen and Merrills are probably a bit of an exception. If you grab a boot and you flex the front, you'll see how much really you need to break it in, and also depend on how much leather you have. A full leather shoe will definitely soften to your body over time. The big difference is if I go and put on a pair of Ultra Lone Peaks or Hoka Challengers or Saucony Peregrines or Brooks Cascadias, any of the trail running brands, you could virtually walk outside and that's your breaking.
Right.
Put them try them on in store. If they feel comfy, that's it. You're done. Now, obviously, you get risk every time you go to a new shoe about, is it perfect for my body? That's always a risk you're going to take with any shoe, even if it's the same brand and you've worn one, the next model. You're never really sure. But if it feels comfy in store, you have room around the toe box. That's probably one of the most critical things. You do not need to break in running shoes. And that is probably the biggest benefit with them. If you go and get a pair of Scarpa, Kalish, which are great shoes, I'm not trying to bag out any of these shoes. We sell heaps and heaps of multiple ones. You do need to break them in, and it's a risk you take because they might not break in perfect to your body. If you come in store and you try a set of Ultra Lone Peaks on, most people will find them comfy because they've got a wide toe box. Yes, there's Ultra Lone Peaks, which is one thing, there are 0 drops, so you've got to be a little bit careful there. But say if we go Hoka Challengers, most people have worn a shoe very, very similar for their whole life. Put them on. If they feel comfy, if you've got room around the toe box, you're ready to go.
I keep hearing you say room around the toe box. We talked before, and I don't mind sharing that I love my Keens because they have this really roomy, wide toe box. But why the emphasis on that? Is it like more so than, say, the heel grip? Is it more important to make sure your toes are comfortable? What's the difference going to be because of that?
I would say the most important thing is for most people's feet problems, if you ever talk to people, obviously, like you can get heel pain and plantar fasciitis, and that's a pretty common thing. But if you talk to most people in the store, most people have either got black toenails or they've got numbness or hot spots across the toe box. And I'm not a podiatrist, I'm not a physio, and I tell this to people regularly when they kind of come in store, and I think a lot of them think we are podiatrists and physio. But normally, any pain around that kind of area is as simple as your shoe is too small. I personally would say 90% of people wear shoes that are too small, and I reckon I'm underestimating that number. Myself included, sometimes I buy shoes that are too small. In store, when you try a shoe on, a tight, snug shoe feels right because it feels like a sock. It feels like it hugs your foot doesn't move. You think, I'm not going to slide around, I'm going to get the most amount of traction, I'm not going to get any blisters because my foot's nice and held together. Once you've walked for an hour, or day 2 or day 3 of your hike, you will be praying that you bought a half size bigger, a full size bigger, and it is our most common thing. And I tell people regularly, like, again, I will let anyone do what they want to do, but I'll give my opinion as well and say, look, I think you're going to run into trouble, and a tight toe box is the number one way to run into trouble. I would say most people out there hiking have gone through it, and again, it goes back to that thing is, a lot of us grew up wearing these kind of tapered toe box shoes, and if I look down at my feet, the Hokas are still tapered toe boxes. If you go to a Lone Peak or an Ultra like that, you get that square toe box, and if you look at your shoe, if you look at your foot, most people take their shoes off and look at their feet, they are not tapered like their shoes are meant to be. But a lot of people, and I find it's not a sexist comment, but women are probably one of the hardest because they've grown up wearing heels, they've grown up squeezing into this because it's what society wants them to do, and they always wear shoes that are too small, I would say a lot of the time, and it's hard to tell them that. Whereas if you tell a guy, go up a size, they're like, really? Like, I can go a bigger shoe? So they're really easy. Women, it's a little bit harder because society's kind of put them in that. And it's a thing we see dancers and football players are the same. They love their really tight toe boxes. But it's the easiest way for a comfy shoe, Keens, Ultra Lone Peaks with a wide toe box. Topos again, and that's why we sell heaps and heaps of them, because you're never going to put one of them on and it's not going to feel comfortable.
I love that. That is so important. So size really does matter when it comes to getting the right shoes. And that would be one of the issues with sort of buying them secondhand or buying them off a sale page or whatever it is. And I've experienced it so many times myself. The size of a shoe, like I know Asics changed their sizing and suddenly had to go up half a size. Who knows why? Same shoe I've been buying for years. So you really do need to get in store and try them and get fitted out properly, and your advice would be go a half size bigger.
I would always say, I think if we put a sign on the door for the motto, if you want a better time hiking, go a half size bigger. I think that would solve most people's issues. But yeah, we don't use contrary to most probably shoe stores, we don't use a foot measurer.
Yeah.
And the problem is if I use a foot measurer and I tell you that you're a US 10, you will never want to change out of a US 10 because you'll think, I'm a US 10. But for me personally, in the store, if I go between all our brands, I'm probably between a 9 to an 11. And that's probably conservative again. Like every brand is different. Even if you say ASICs for a reason, if you pick 5 different ASICs, you will get likely probably 3 or 4 different sizes. And they're minimal. Like you're looking quarter of a half size if you're looking between a brand. But a half size is massive and it can make a huge difference. So we sell 80% of our business is online, but obviously the storefront does cover like 20 or so percent. So I would always, if you can come in store, if you're in Brisbane, absolutely come in store, try them on. It makes a huge, huge difference. And
get yourself set up right the first time.
Yeah, go a half size bigger.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. Okay, let's talk about some other things that could make a difference to your footwear. So we've got sort of 3 things we could talk about: socks, inner soles, and I'm going to throw in controversially hiking poles. So we'll leave that till last. Let's talk socks. How important are socks in the equation of, getting that comfort so you can walk all day and not getting blisters?
Yeah, I'd say to people in the store, 95% of your comfort comes from a shoe. And I'd probably say nearly more of that. Like if you get the right shoe, I don't want to keep harping on about shoes, but if you get the right shoe, I would say you could nearly wear any sock. And I think that's one of the big things a lot of us try and go, oh, these shoes are uncomfortable, I'm going to fix it with a sock. Yes, there are definitely cases where it exists, but I would say cut your losses, put your shoes on Facebook Marketplace and buy another pair of shoes. And you don't have to buy them from Wildfire. My boss will probably kill me for saying that, but I'm not trying to say it to tell people to come and buy shoes from us, but most of the comfort comes from a shoe. The socks are an important part, but get your shoe right first. Get that size right. Get the toe box right. Get the cushion right. Keep it nice and lightweight. Don't go waterproof if you don't need it. These make the huge differences. If your foot's hot, if your foot's heavy, if your foot sweats, if your foot's tight, it doesn't matter what sock. You could go and spend $1,000 on a custom-made pair of socks and you can have a bad experience. The big thing we see in store with socks is probably the difference between your cushions, and then probably the most recent thing is synthetic versus merino. Mm-hmm. I would say the big gains are in the synthetic region. Again, most people now lean towards synthetic socks because, like the hiking shoes are a little bit older school. Most of your cushion now, if you get a pair of, say, if we go back to the trail running shoes, most of your cushion is going to come from the shoe. You can get trail running shoes that feel really soft and comfy straight out of the box, so you don't need to add a huge amount of cushion. So you can get synthetic socks, which again are lighter, they're generally comfier, and they're not as hot. That's probably the big thing. Merino socks are normally quite hot, but if you're doing cold hikes, it's impossible to beat merino. But these days I would always lean towards synthetic, unless you think you're not going to wash your socks at all during your hike, then
the merino.
Merino
It's going to help.
But I'd say there's synthetic materials now that are getting really, really good. So I would always have a look at those, see what options work for you. If you're a trail running shoe, I would definitely avoid a thick sock. You do not need a thick sock. If you're a hiking shoe, where it's that firmer base, you might find a thicker sock works a little bit better for you, but I would avoid full cushion socks personally. You can get like Smart Wool socks, have their light cushion socks, which are really quite thick still. For Queensland, I would keep the socks nice and light. If they're hot, you will come into more issues from hot feet.
That's right, because you're sweating, and that's where your blisters are going to come from, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So now I've got another mission. I've got to check out this new range of socks. Let's move on to inner soles, because it seems like everybody's got the buzz. And we were talking before. I've had an issue with my plantar fascia, so I've thought about how much of a difference is an inner sole going to make for me. And you were saying that they're really popular. You sell heaps of them.
Yeah. So inner soles at the moment for us is one of our big businesses, I would say. It's been a real revolution in the last probably year or so. I'm not actually 100% sure why. I'm probably on the fence. I like to sit on the fence on most things at work, so I don't really put customers offside, because I think it's important, if you've done your research, it is important to also believe in what you're about to wear as well. I think that's a big factor. So I don't want to say I wouldn't wear that. And again, going back to the barefoot shoes, I'm not a barefoot shoe wearer personally, but we get heaps of success from customers that wear them. So I don't want to avoid people doing what they've researched and trying something. Inner soles, I would be cautious again. It is not a miracle cure. And again, we sell inner soles that are generic off-the-shelf ones. They're good. They're from big brands, Superfeet, Light Feet. These are huge brands. We sell heaps and heaps of them and get really good success. Some of the Superfeet Trailblazers have been tried and tested for years and years with really good success. I would always, if I buy a pair of shoes, go out, try the shoes as they are with the socks you have at home, unless they're Bonds or Kmart socks that are going to move and move heaps. So probably get a half decent pair of socks, but you don't need to spend heaps. And then test them out as they are with just the shoes as they are, and then see what modifications you want to make. If you're finding that you really like the shoes, but you find that you roll in and it's causing you issues, rolling in is not a bad thing, but if it's causing you issues, then it's probably something that you need to look at. Then you can start utilising different inner soles, but it's kind of a DIY. I would test a few things first. I mean, when I first looked at inner soles when I was a lot younger, I used tissue paper under my arch to see if that worked for my cycling shoes, and then I eventually went to like carbon orthotics, but I didn't really love carbon orthotics personally. So I'm kind of a see what works, see what doesn't work, but for us, for inner soles, we have heaps and heaps of options. If you bring your shoes in, you can try them in store, have a walk around, you kind of get a feel for it. Just adding something there is not going to cure everything, but for some people, they do find a lot of benefit from it. But again, to hark back to it, if you get the shoe right, I think
you won't need the extras.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about is hiking poles, because of this feel that boots are going to give me more stability. So is a hiking pole going to help with that in terms of, if you're on scree or you're on loose gravel, and is that going to actually give you the stability you might have been looking for in a boot? So I'm finding a lot more younger people are going to hiking poles now, or whether it's a single one or a pair, and most of them are talking about the downhill and the loose gravel.
Yeah, so if you go over to Europe, you actually find, like, in Australia, you see a lot of people still in boots and hiking poles and stuff like that. If you go to Europe, most of the people just wear trail running shoes and hiking poles. Super popular over there, and they get a lot of loose, like, screen and stuff like that. It's a lot, probably, I'd say, harder hikes in a way. In Australia, we're kind of unsure of our direction exactly. I would, if it was my choice, I would go trail running shoes with poles before I go boots. I think you get more stability from trail running poles, or not trail running, trail hiking poles, either or, than you do with boots. And again, most of our hikes aren't in that crazier terrain that you benefit from a maximal supportive boot. You can get that from the hiking poles. And again, you find a lot of people who use like heavier weight backpacks as well find it's really good for hiking poles. I would say that's one of the main things that I see. So if you're thinking of getting doing a hike where you need a backpack over 10, 15 kilos, poles become a huge factor there. So you get more stability there. Again, I would test it first. Me personally, I don't like my hands. I like my hands empty.
Yeah.
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I just don't like holding things in my hand. And when I run, I don't like holding water bottles or phones or anything like that. I like hands-free. So I would test it first. If you hate doing it, don't go out and buy. I'm not doing a great job of upselling all our products. But if you test, like if you can find a way to borrow your friends and see what it's like with poles or use it without it, don't go and buy a set of $350 poles that you're going to find that you hate.
Yeah.
It's just, I would, with hiking, keep it super simple. Get a pair of shoes that are comfy, get outdoors, and then start to find that DIY way that works for you. There is no right or wrong. We see everyone do everything that's very different, but it works for them. So poles, shoes, it's whatever really works for you. But these days, poles is definitely becoming a more common choice for stability than shoes.
I think that is a great note to end on. I think we've covered everything to do with footwear today. And Mitch, you said at the start, this is your first podcast. You did a fantastic job. I think we need to come back and talk backpacks, because after you've got the shoes right, what you're carrying on your back is the next biggest thing when it comes to hiking. So I'll look forward to a return episode when we talk about the next lot of equipment. So just a reminder, Mitch is at Wildfire Sports. I'm going to put the links to the store on the podcast notes, and we might throw a couple of pictures in of some of the shoes that you've talked about today so people know ones to have a look at. So maybe even your favourite pair of socks. So that would be a great help, I'm sure. So I hope today has been really valuable for those people listening. And thank you again, Mitch, for your time. Okay, thank you for listening. Like I said, I'll put all details of the trails and locations discussed today, which I haven't really done. We've talked about footwear in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to give me some feedback, suggestions or ideas. And I'd really appreciate, once again, if you could rate me, follow or share with your friends. And in the meantime, happy hiking.